That's funny.
It's Monday, August 8th. It's 6 o'clock. Council chambers here at City Hall. Media has been notified. Agenda's been posted. Clerk, take the roll call.
Oh, there we go. Tom Kelly. Here. Stephen Jopek. Eileen Daniel.
Here.
Carrie Michalowski.
Here.
Gerald Anderson. Here. Thomas Barnett.
Here.
David Holt.
Here.
Leanne Felton.
Here.
Chris Hannes.
Here we have quorum. Pledge. Moving on to public comment, we have Jim.
Jim Youngers is the president of the Hodag Snowmobile Club in Rhinelander. We're here tonight because we're fighting to get a trail through town that's existing, but we're trying to make it a route so that we can get from the north end of Rhinelander through to the south end of Rhinelander. And the importance of that, it'd be devastating if we would lose that, because anybody that comes into Rhinelander, they look at it, if they look at a map and it dead ends on the north end of town and it dead ends on the south side of town, they're probably not going to come here, because when people go to a place, they want to get a route, they want to be able to do a loop on one end of town, maybe through the other end of town, going to different options to eat, getting gas. So the route that we have through town now is what we're trying to save. And I said if we lose that, it's gonna hurt it a lot. So if you look at the other cities in the area, like if you go to Eagle River, Three Lakes, Lake Tom, Saint Germain, all those trails go right through town. So if that doesn't happen here, you're just going to lose a lot of that traffic. Also, we're the biggest club in the county. We have 100-some landowners that we have to work with. Any one of those landowners at any time can fight us, and we could lose a trail. I guess the last thing I was expecting was to have to fight with the city over this, just because of the importance of that for your winter sports. Rhinelander is a well-known area for snowmobiling. But again, the importance of this is big, and I have people here that are going to come up and talk and give their opinion on what's happening as well. So basically, we're trying to save a route through town. If we lose that, if you come from the south, you would not be able to get north unless you went all the way up through Sugar Camp and came around that way, or going out to Lake George and come around from the bypass and get out that way, which people just aren't going to do. If you come from the north, it'd be the same thing. You'd have to go up through Sugar Camp or down around the other way, and just people aren't going to do that. So the importance of this, again, is pretty big. So with that being said, thank you for listening to me, and there's some other people that'll come up and add to what I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you. Tony?
Good evening. How you doing? Tony Haug. I'm with the Hodag Hospitality Group. We're the ones putting the hotel up, Holiday Inn Express, in the current rock garden. Our plan is to move some rocks, and one of the key things we were doing with that hotel was going to be for the weekends, and we're going to have plenty of parking for the snowmobile trailers and whatnot. So a key part of that hotel, if you're coming and staying at a hotel, you got access right to Boom right now, and you get out to Boom. And to me, for the snowmobiles, Boom's kind of the heart of Rhinelander as far as the trails and everything like that. So we definitely were counting on that area being well supported for snowmobile trails in the winter. We think that'll be a very good thing for the town, and we want to be very snowmobile friendly there. So very, very much in support of keeping that there and continuing it there. And you know, we look forward to having the people on the weekends coming up and the revenue and everybody going. If we're at that hotel and we got to go back around and they got to 4 hours to get around, I think that will be a tough spot to continually come for a weekend to stay in Rhinelander at that new hotel. So just big time in support of that, and that was one of our big influencer thoughts for the weekend, you know, which can be tough in the winter for hotels period, is just having that snowmobile crowd coming up and a place for them to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott?
Hi, I'm Scott from Shoulders RV and Marine in Rhinelander. My wife and I bought about 4 years ago. As you guys know, just like these guys are saying, the biggest thing for this trail, if you don't snowmobile and you don't understand the capacity of this decision, if we cut the trail system off here, and I know it was always, it was referred to many times last year that it was just always a temporary solution. It was never really a trail, but we always have used it as, and it's always been passed yearly. Well, we'd really like the, the security of having a long-term trail there. So if you don't know snowmobiling, if we cut that trail off that goes across Menominee and then across down into the south part of town, we will lose any access out of Rhinelander to get south, to go to Pelican Lake, to go to Anago, to go to anywhere south of Rhinelander. And I have a rental business. I sell snowmobiles as well, obviously, but I have a rental business of 30 snowmobiles that I rent out every year. We just put in 30 brand new ones in again this year. We put them in about every 2 years. Well, if we cut our trail system off from the south, I do deliveries too, don't get me wrong. I'll deliver them to Eagle River, I'll deliver them to Monaco, but obviously that's not ideal for anybody. Customers are not gonna come to Rhinelander and rent a snowmobile and stay at Holiday Acres or Oaken Bucket or any of these resorts that depend on this business in the winter if they can't go anywhere but north. If they can't go anywhere but north, they're just gonna go to Monaco or Eagle River and stay there and rent there and bring all that revenue to one of those towns, not to Rhinelander. Because why would they come here if they can't go anywhere but north? Well, then I would just go north, right? And I guess I'll say the same thing I did again last year. I did not grow up here, but I've been a Rhinelander resident now for the last 5, 6, 7 years, whatever it's been. And I'm very proud of this community. I think there's been some phenomenal things that have happened in this community in the last 6, 7 years. I know Tom knows me. We try and do a lot with the community, give away campers, give away all kinds of golf carts. We do all kinds of stuff for these community events, and I will participate in every single one I can. The Dome, Tony's new hotel, the ice arena. We've got so many great things going on in this town, and this town has just been moving forward for the last 3, 4, 5 years. We've been doing such great things. Cutting off our trail system in the wintertime to have any capacity to go south whatsoever would be moving Rhinelander backwards. Maybe not every business in town, but I can tell you that my business and many others I know, because I deliver to a lot of the resorts up here between pontoons, ski boats, and snowmobiles, as well as campers. It's really hard in the Northwoods on a business in Rhinelander, Wisconsin. November, December, January, February, I can pretty much bank that I'm going to lose money every single year. It's just a matter of how much. Snowmobiling to me is not the core of my business. It just helps me kind of get through a little bit. It just helps me bleed a little bit less in the wintertime. And that's how a lot of these businesses are up here. Our population right now in July and early August is huge, and it's great, and we love it. And that's great, great, great for business. But we need something in the winter to get us through to that next July. Otherwise, you're just going to see more hotels for sale. There's already 2 for sale right now in town. You're going to see more restaurants for sale. You're going to see more of these businesses go under because it takes too long to get from one to July to the next if you don't have some capacity of something giving you some business in the middle. So we need this snowmobile trail system so we can all get through and bleed a little bit less in the wintertime. So that way we can make it to next summer when our business really booms. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Dan?
Dan Town, Rhinelander GM, Rhinelander Toyota, Rhinelander Auto Gear, and Detail Pros. So I think everybody has said basically everything I was going to say about the trail system. I do personally snowmobile in the winter. I can tell you that for my businesses, I employ up to 130 people at any given time for my different locations. And winter is tough. It does slow down, and we get a lot of business from snowmobilers. People come in, they use our facilities for repair while they're staying here. And I personally use the trail system, and being honest with you, if you cut off that system, I would pick one way and only go one way. It wouldn't be through Rhinelander. It would make no sense. You're not going to go all the way around that loop. If you have a map, take a look at it, kind of track it and look at it. You can't drive around the city on a snowmobile as fast as you can a car. You know, you got to like multiply it by 4. So it's a long ways around, and it makes no sense. I'm also here to help with any solution that you need, because the trail system that we're talking about, the road that it comes out onto, I own all 4 businesses all the way to the corner, or all 4 properties all the way to the corner. So technically, the trail system that is currently in place is going across the road and my property. So I'm willing to allow you to use that in any way. I'm here to help. I have 0 issues with it. There's no other businesses that the trail system has to touch on that road. So I'm here to help and let you know that it's okay to use it.
Thank you. Scott?
Hey folks, Scott Hetland. You may remember me from last year, but I've been active in the Hodag Snowmobile Club for over 20 years. I'm currently on the board, as well as on the board of the Oneida County Snowmobile Council. As Jim mentioned, there's 9 clubs in the county, and we're the largest one. So our club, we've got over 150 miles of trails that we maintain, and I would say it's a healthy mix of what we call funded and unfunded. And unfunded is what we call a club trail, and that's what this trail is through town. So anything we do with this trail, whether it's marking, brushing, grooming, maintenance, all comes directly from the club. There's no other state reimbursement that comes on this trail. So, and as some of the folks said, we've been doing this for over 5 years. We've been getting a yearly approval from the city. And even last year, we spent more time last year. We came to the city council meeting last year. And during that time last year, we went through all of our alternate routes we've tried over the years. We even reviewed and gave feedback on the routes that the city gave us to look at. And we couldn't find, there was no easy button. We gave that feedback that we couldn't find anything last year. So last year, again, when we asked for the ordinance to be changed, that Menominee Drive be added to the snowmobile route system, that there wasn't a motion for that, but we again gained a 1-year approval. So that's why we're back here again this year. So what the club's doing is asking, we've asked for that ordinance to be changed just so we've got some time and we can breathe, we can work on other things. We don't have to keep coming every year to the council to ask permission. Also last year, there was a motion made and approved that the city administrator was going to work with the staff to get an engineer to work with the club to find an alternate long-term to cross Stevens Street or Highway 17. Well, we didn't receive any communication at all year long. In fact, the club was the one that reached out earlier this year to find out the status of the project. The other thing is with this ordinance change that we've asked, it gets tied in with the snowmobile road crossing covering. It's always been tied in with that because of Stevens Street. Over a year ago, the council actually approved that covering. Approved to pay for that. And then it got vetoed. The mayor vetoed it back then because then they didn't want to spend the money on a project that there wasn't an ordinance saying that the trail could go there. So it got vetoed at that point. What I would say, if it comes to the road covering, I wouldn't make that the decision making here. If you look at around town, there's many, many snowmobile crossings, and I would say less than half have that covering. As an example, Highway C, we've got our snowmobile trail crosses Highway C 5 times. None of those have any coverings on it. And for the average person driving by, you wouldn't even notice the trail goes across it. So that's where we are. If it was up to me, I wouldn't put the covering. Things change, trails change. We may not even be here in a couple of years on this route. So, but we're here asking for the ordinance to be changed because that's what gives us a little peace of mind. We don't have to keep coming every year. So, but as these guys said, if we end up not getting this ordinance changed and losing this trail, it's going to have a devastating effect on the tourism. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Not seeing none. Moving on to 5, mayor's comments. I have none at this time. Moving on to 6, which is consent agenda.
Daniel, make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Hold second.
Okay. Zach, I do have a question regarding one of the topics in there. Can you explain the Johnson Control Panel Service Renewal proposal for $4,022?
Yeah, happy to, and Jeremy's here. That could also elaborate further. It's a renewal contract, and it's been our practice to bring these agreements through the council, both for procurement policy compliance as well as your information. So it's a service the city's been utilized for the last number of years, and at this time has not secured another competitive proposal to this.
Not seeing any other discussion. Clerk, take the roll call.
Stephen Jopek. David Holt.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Tom Kelly.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Consent passes. Moving on to number 7, ordinances. Just based on the amount of people here, I'm going to move C to the first item, which would be ordinance amending section 4.02-176 snowmobile access. Mr. Kelly?
I would make a motion to waive the second reading and approve the ordinance amending section 4.02.176 snowmobile access.
Barnett, second.
Okay, there a motion, a second, any discussion? Mikulowski?
Yeah, in reading the ordinance, it's a little confusing under 3, or 4.02.176 print 3, because it's kind of a double negative. So I would like that to be, I don't know if I have to amend a motion or have
Correct.
a friendly, right, amend a motion?
Correct.
To instead of having it say any.
Just a point of clarification. You're right now, the motion on the floor is to waive this to the single reading, not to discuss the motion itself. You really should
He
do
said
the
to approve
waiver
it.
first, and then you should do the motion. You'll get a chance. I just want to mix. The motion that I heard Tom Kelly make was to waive the second reading of this motion and take immediate action, correct?
And to approve it, right?
Okay, but those two separate motions.
Okay.
You know, if you want to handle it together, that's fine. I just want to make sure that everyone understands you're basically got two motions together. One is to waive the second, and the second is the motion itself. So you're okay with that? Okay, then it's perfectly okay. I just wanted to make sure that everyone understood there's two motions on the floor.
Thank you. Mikulowski, go on.
The portion where it says any portion of any of the below listed streets not marked as a designated snowmobile route are not open for snowmobile use. With the double negative, it's kind of confusing to read. So my motion would be to change it to only the below listed streets may be used as a snowmobile route.
So that's addition to what's currently stated, correct?
No, not
striking?
addition,
Instead.
in lieu of,
So you're striking any portion.
correct.
There's a better way to state it. but-
Or however you want to state it. I don't care, except for the double negative.
Yeah. Chris.
With that motion, is there, she did technically make an amendment to
Are you
motion.
making a motion or just an amendment?
Just an amendment
So is
to the,
there a second to the amendment?
Steve, you want to help us
I'm
out?
happy to do that. What I would like to know is if there are any other potential changes. I mean, if we're going to waive the second reading in a same vote, we need to make sure that we're going to get all of the changes that we need done.
I would suggest you yield time to Ms. Daniels.
Okay, well, or I could just turn off my mic and you could call on her.
Got herself in a weird position, but I yield to Ms. Daniels.
There's no S on the end. It's just
Daniel, sorry.
That's okay, Chris. The other Chris didn't get that right till like the last month he was in office.
I'll try to do better than that.
look
So you're in good company.
see him?
What did he do? Oh, he's back there. Great. Howdy. I just, I mostly, Miss I can't even talk today. Ms. Michalowski, is correct. I believe it was misread by the Snowmobile Club. We are not taking away that access. If you read the ordinance, I think what the purpose of this is to make sure that folks know they can't go off the marked trails on these roads. So we're basically saying any portion of the below listed streets that are not marked as a designated snowmobile route are not opened. In this case, we will have Menominee Drive marked where the snowmobile route is, but if folks go off of that trail, that's where it's not allowed. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay. So we're not taking the access away. I just want the Snowmobile Club to understand that we're actually adding it in. We're giving you the access to that road in an ordinance so that you guys have it, but if folks go off the trail on those roads, that's where they run into an issue. Have we got it all straightened out now, guys?
Yes, I would say.
Yeah.
Okay.
Administrator to ask the ordinance to be changed, so we're going on what he told us to do.
Okay. Okay, because that's the way I'm reading it anyway. So, yeah, I'm guessing that we're going to be marking that road as the snowmobile trail, and if you go off of that, then that's when there's an issue. And if I'm incorrect, I hope you guys would definitely weigh in on that.
Nope, so bold would be addition, so that's adding that in.
Right, these other
So-
streets have already been on here. The only addition, the only change to this ordinance is that we added the access that you asked for.
This also then makes it easier for it's not a yearly process. It's
Correct.
kind of in stone now unless the ordinance were to change in the future.
Yes. All right, good, that's all I wanted to say.
Cool. Mr. Anderson?
I would like to second Ms. Michalowski's motion, but I also like to ask, what was the last sentence you said?
I'll let her clarify that sentence.
To have it read, only the below listed streets may be a snowmobile route. Just wanted it to be clear instead of the double negative.
Cool. Mr. Holt?
Just for clarification, I don't want to, I want it to be more clear. The way it reads to me, there are two issues. One is listing the streets that have some access, and then also stating that those streets only have access where it is marked. And so, in the spirit of making sure the language is clear, it looks like a double negative, but in some ways it's not, because it's saying two different things. It's saying, yes, here's the list of streets that have some access, however, they're not fully accessible. So I wouldn't want to change it to make it sound like the street is wide open, because then we have another issue there. Does that make sense?
So the motion and second on the table was to amend per what Michalowski said, so I believe we need to take a vote on that, up or down, and then from there we can make another amendment or pass. Ms. Michalowski?
I'm not firm on necessarily the wording of it, and I would allow administration to come up with a better wording other than having, so it means the same thing, but just not have the double negative. That's my main goal. So I don't really care how it's wordsmithed in order to do that.
So, Mr. Chairman, if you took and you staked that sentence, whereas snowmobile routes will be designated by standards and will be marking, and then if you said only those portions of the below-listed streets that have that standard marking shall be open for snowmobile use. So if you reference back to the designated marking, and only those portions that are so marked will be open, then I don't
Yes.
think you have a double negative and
Perfect.
you get the use you want.
So your judgment is the amendment is sound as is?
I'm saying that the correction of the language that I've just given you will accomplish what the amendment was intended to convey.
Correct. That's the wording I'd like anyways.
Mr. Anderson, since you second, are you okay with that?
I think I want to withdraw my second if I can.
Okay, so anyone would like to 2nd?
I'll second it.
Mr. Holt, not seeing any discussion, take a roll call, clerk, on the amendment.
David Holt,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Nay.
Stephen Jopek, Carrie McLowski,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Leanne Felton,
Aye.
Thomas Kelly.
Aye.
Amendment passes. Now going back to the original motion made by Mr. Kelly. Any discussion? Ms. Daniel?
Since we are changing the wording, I'd almost want to take it to I'd kind of want to take it to a second reading, just to make sure that the language is very clear for both city residents and for the snowmobile club, so that we have a full understanding between ourselves and them, so that the wording is changed before we go ahead and approve the ordinance completely.
Mr. Holt?
I'd agree. Indeed, winter is coming, but not that quickly. So,
Then the proper procedure would to bifurcate the motion, removing the language, or voting first on the language of whether you waive the second reading, and then voting on the main motion as it has been amended, if you really want to do it. Somebody's got to move to bifurcate. Otherwise, how are you going to vote?
I move to bifurcate?
Bifurcate. Create the two motions, because there is two motions.
Anderson, second.
Okay. So first, let's do waiving the second reading. Clerk, take the roll call.
Gerald Anderson, Thomas Barnett,
I'm not sure what
We're voting on whether or
waiving
not
the
to waive it, so an aye vote would be waiving the second reading, just as a clarification there.
Okay, but we don't want
But
to
we
now
don't.
waive the second reading. We've skipped all over this thing so much, I don't even know where we're at.
It's going to be snowing pretty soon.
I know, right?
It's
So
August.
I'm going to say nay.
Eileen Daniel,
Nay.
Tom Kelly,
Aye.
Carrie McLowski,
Nay.
David Holt,
Nay.
Leanne Felton,
Nay.
Stephen Jopek.
Okay. So that will then bring us to next council for the next reading. As far as his motion to approve, any discussion? Not seeing none. Clerk, take the roll call.
David Holt,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek, Eileen Daniel,
Nay, because we're voting on approving it, right?
We're moving.
Are we just approving the first reading?
First reading.
Oh, aye.
Carrie McLowski,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Tom Kelly,
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Okay, that proves. So just to make everyone clear, this will be back in 2 weeks at the next council for the final reading and decision by council. Okay. Nope. Let's go to an easy one, which would be now 7A. This is ordinance for CR-10-1A to the city of Rhinelander. So this is actually property owned by the city of Rhinelander that's currently not in the city. So pretty much we're petitioning to annex our own property into the city.
Barnett, I make a motion to accept the ordinance annexing CR 10-1A to the city of Rhinelander.
Daniel, second.
Any discussion? Mr. Anderson?
Could we just hear again an explanation of where this property is?
Sure. So it's just north of the airport. It touches Hanson Lake. It's off Hanson Lake Road, if I'm not mistaken. In the past, we were under the assumption that it was partially owned by the county as well as us, not just us only, thus cleaning up the map kind of a thing. Okay, not seeing any discussion. Clerk, take the roll call.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Leanne Felton,
Aye.
Carrie McLowski,
Aye.
Thomas Kelly,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
David Holt,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Okay, ordinance passes. Moving on to 7B, amending section 3.04-02 of park regulations. Refer to Zach.
Page 19 in your packets, if you're making your way there. As with all ordinances, the strike-throughs are cleanup text, and then the bold is the additional text. And so this is, as the agenda indicates, park regulations ordinance.
Daniel, make a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance number 2022-13 to amend chapter 3.04 or 02.
Mikulowski, second.
Any discussion? Mikulowski?
Okay, so just for clarification, under 1:5, I see we're striking out Parks, Buildings, and Grounds Department and adding Common Council, but then it says under the supervision of the Parks Director. So does that mean the Common Council's under the Parks Director? Just
Yeah, let's say there was an event that they wanted, a special event, that was an application that came before the city for that. Generally, you set the rules and parameters of the Parks Department, or the Parks, excuse me, which is this ordinance itself, and the Parks Director is supervising it. So it's not necessarily, and I apologize because the heading was excluded on this one, but essentially it's indicating that special events should be coming through, especially of this nature, to the Common Council for their approval, and then the Parks Department would oversee that
Oversee the special
activity.
event.
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Mr. Anderson?
Couple of questions. One is, in some of these items, we're eliminating Parks, Buildings, Grounds Department and putting Common Council, and others we're not. And is there a pattern to that?
Yeah, I would look at number 14, for example. That one speaks to the sale of items within our parks. Generally, our rules disallow that unless there's a special event that occurs that would be given approval. So another good example would be item 12, back in item 12, where it allows for the department and the police department to enforce the rules. That wouldn't be the council that would enforce the rules. So we're not striking the instances of those two departments.
In 15, right in the middle, it says that Common Council or permit. What, is that a permit issued by the clerk, or what kind of permit is that? And why do we have those kind of in parallel?
It should be actually, unless authorized by the Common Council or permitted, well, hang on, or I think let me read this again, because the strike through of the sole, basically that said that the City Parks Department was to primarily make these spaces open for picnics and social or recreational activities, to which we know our parks are used by far more than that. So it's to remove the inference of such strength that the Parks Department only exists to do that. So there might be a missing word.
Well, that part I'm okay with, changing sole to primary, but the word permit in there, or permit, it seems like one way to do it is get it authorized by the council. The other way to do it is through a permit, and I just want to know how that works.
That seems reasonable because most people do call and get a permit to hold a small,
Gathering.
like a small gathering at some of these parks without having to go through Common Council. Am I reading that correctly?
Right. What there is in the ordinance, we have certain permitted uses. In other words, you don't have to get approval. You have permitted uses. So what this is saying is that the activity which the hold conducts, so on, unless authorized by the council or otherwise permitted by ordinance, is what it's really saying. In other words, if we have an ordinance that permits it, otherwise you don't need council approval. Those are the two cases. Make sense?
No, because this seems to be the ordinance that does not permit it. Does not permit those activities listed in the first two lines unless, unless we give a special authorization.
Right, and I'll just interject. So if you pull out the bolded portion there, this ordinance outright excludes any ability to do any of that. And we know that assemblies in our parks occur. So what we're trying to say is we shouldn't have an ordinance that disallows any of that, because as staff, we wouldn't be able to approve any special events applications. So when we add, unless authorized by the common council, but as Steve was saying, or otherwise permitted, and I don't have any issue striking that last sentence. It makes sense why it's in there, because our city parks are to be used by the public, not for private individual purposes. So, you know, I left that thinking the spirit of that is appropriate, but it does leave some confusion potentially as to the word smithing that's been done there.
I don't find any confusion with that part. It's just with the word "or permit."
Mr. Barnett?
Looking at this, can I call the chief from the fire department, Brian, to speak on number 9? I want his opinion on that.
Sure, you could yield time.
Good evening. My only concern with number 9 would be any burning within city limits is done under a burn permit anyways, per city ordinance. So I would recommend that we include something with fire department and a burning permit. It's no cost, no fee, and it gives us an opportunity to cite out where or what they plan on doing in accordance with that ordinance.
Yeah, I feel that the fire department should have a say, so especially when it's dealing with fire.
So is that only for like campfires? What about like a barbecue grill?
Well, it says in here about that, let me go back to it, sorry. Except in fireplaces or approved grills. So this is alluding to anything outside of, such as a recreational fire, the way I read it. And correct me if I'm wrong.
Just one clarification, our special events application allows for the provision or inclusion of the issue of burning activities in our parks. So this is a park regulation that doesn't supersede any private property activity. So in the case of like the deaf group that's coming next to the golf event, they want to have a bonfire or some sort of fire activity outside. Right on the special events application, they'd include a statement, and then it would get routed for all the departments to review and then provide commentary or feedback. So what this, I'm not sure, Tom, if there's anything that would be specific, because what we're telling people is you can't have anything, you can't burn anything outside of the approved fireplaces or grills that are like the grills that are in our parks already.
I guess what I want to make clear is that I think the not just common council, but the fire department should be part of that decision-making process with permission.
And they are through the special events application process.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, which we have to nail down special events. If you want to see all those applications right now, we've been running them through staff approval, thinking that they're most appropriate to be approved at the staff level. A lot of times when our council meetings don't sync up, if people are last-minute applicants. I hear what you're saying. It's just there's a procedure and a provision for that type of activity outside of what the park regulates. Like this is what you'd see on a sign when you pull up to the park. It wouldn't cite you got to go to the fire department when you come into the park, or the park rules that are posted.
And the same goes for like the bonfire that happens at the Hodag Park Christmas lights
of the north,
yeah.
Right? And their special event application, ideally, or a lease, if we actually had them leased to use that park for that purpose, it would be included in there.
I guess I would ask, do you have any other concerns then, or was that addressed?
No, if we're addressing it within and we're good with that, the decision as part of the special events permit, then
Well, if the fire department's good with it, then I'm good with it.
Mr. Anderson?
Well, based on Zach's explanation, I don't understand why we're injecting the council into it at all then.
What we're saying is the council could change the rules and decide that anybody could show up and start having burn pits at the parks. What we're saying is we're going to maintain that approval at the council level. Unless you want city staff to approve where people can burn, that's fine.
If they're doing it through the special events application, right, the department is approving it then? Or?
Well, but that's special events. This is really speaking to the general use of the public of the public, by the public, of the public park.
I think I can.
Mr. Burnett.
Gerald, so through the public park part of it, it's, if there's no special event going on, we're not going to be letting people just come in the middle of a park on a Tuesday and build a bonfire, is basically what he's saying. All that other stuff that comes through the special events permit, that's obviously going through multiple channels of approval. So this ordinance, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's stating that Harriet and Harold can't come into Hodag Park next week and build a bonfire because they're camping out there.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Anderson?
Yeah, I have one more. I just like to move that paragraph 11 be amended to read, bring pets into a park except on leash, so that it's in the same style as all the rest of them. All the rest of them start with the verb of what's prevented. And this one ought to be the same.
Okay, so since we didn't waive the second reading, this is just the first one, so I'm assuming Zach could take care of that for the second reading.
That's fine.
Okay, so we passed discussion. Clerk, take the roll call.
Didn't have a second.
Clerk?
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek, Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski,
Aye.
Thomas Kelly,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
David Holt,
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
First reading passes. Moving on to 7D, which is public amusement. Refer to Zach.
Yeah, similarly to the other items we've talked about, which is page 23. I'm not going to get in the business of us adding or spending a lot of time wordsmithing the definitions, because I would argue that this ordinance has probably outlived its useful life, but here we are. So just doing a minor amount of cleanup. At some level, of when we would do a codifying of the ordinance, or not a codifying, excuse me, but a full cleanup, these would probably be combined and redefined. But again, just trying to, in the spirit of special events and other type cleanup, this is presented before you tonight.
Mr. Anderson?
My only question on this one was in paragraph 6, the fourth line. You want a motion first? First reading?
Yeah, generally you need a motion, yeah.
I move that we advance this to a second reading.
Okay, is there a second?
Daniel second.
Okay. Okay, now what about paragraph 6?
The fourth line uses the term city administrative team. And I can't find that defined anywhere in the ordinances, and wonder if that doesn't need a bit more explanation.
You could say city clerk. I mean, right now, the administrative team is making those special events application approvals. We don't bring them to a committee or to the council as a whole, so I'm fine however folks want to reference it.
City administration, would that do?
Sure.
Daniel?
I'm just wondering how many incidences of feats of circus riding and rope walking and wax figures being displayed in town we've had recently.
Hundreds.
Hundreds. That's what I thought. I knew our police chief was probably behind all this. My question is, what kind of license is required?
Well,
and where do
it
we
really
get that
speaks to
license?
I mean, carnivals, if we had a routine
True.
visit of an annual circus,
Yeah.
you know, in the case of the carnival, we had a difficulty getting operator information, and so we need to
Okay.
continue to affirm that we have a license for these types of activities.
Is it a license or a permit?
I would look to our attorney to give me the determination.
Because
whether it's a
I would
permit or
assume a license is something you acquire on your own. A permit is something that you
Yeah,
file with the
I mean,
city.
let's say the operator of the carnival came back multiple times in a year, they would probably want a license to operate in the city, not a permit. Granted, a license grants them permission, so however.
Yeah, license would be carry out a certain activity. This is an activity they would be carrying out in the city. You would determine whether they're qualified to carry out that activity in the city. I know it sounds strange, but that's exactly, and it's very traditional that cities have licenses for this kind of activities. You bring a cabaret group, if you go back to the old Chautauqua days, those people had to be licensed to come into your community to present oratories and to sell snake oil. So it's probably a carryover of a tradition that license is always the term. It's like you're going out of business, you have to get a license to go out of business, which is the greatest humor in the world. Pay to go out of business. I just love that phrase.
I'm just going to have to renew my rope walking license then, so I can do that.
You're going to apply for a rope walking license? Okay.
So, okay, not seeing any more discussion.
I have a discussion.
Mr. Barnett?
On number three is, so we're just striking out the bottom part. The rest of this has always been here?
That's right.
Correct, so we're just striking out C.
Okay.
Okay. Clerk, take the roll call.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
David Holt,
Aye.
Thomas Kelly,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek, Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson, Leanne Felton,
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
Okay, first reading passes. Moving on to 8A. It's amending 2-5-15 accommodation tax, also known as room tax. Would entertain a motion.
Mikulowski, I'll make a motion to approve the second reading of the ordinance amending section 2.05.15 accommodation tax.
Holt, second.
Any discussion?
The one item I would just mention, I didn't catch the word accommodation in the header, so we will rename that room unless there's opposition to do that, so it's consistent throughout the ordinance.
Sure, since it doesn't change the spirit. Not seeing any other discussion. Clerk, take the roll call.
Leanne Felton,
Aye.
Thomas Kelly,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson, Carrie Mikulowski,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek, David Holt.
Aye.
Ordinance passes. Moving on to 8B. This is amending the 2-01-04 boards and commissions. Mikulowski, I think.
Yeah, I'll make a motion, but then I'll have discussion afterwards. So I'll make a motion to approve the second reading of ordinance amending sections 2.01.04 boards and commissions, 2.0105, 2.01.10, 2.01.11, 2.01.14, 2.01.16, 2.05.15, standing committees.
Barnett, second.
Your question?
Oh, wait, maybe it wasn't this one. Was it this one? Yeah, so, wouldn't we need to add the tourism commission under the boards and commissions?
Now that you've approved the ordinance, technically,
Yes?
yes, I would say so.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, it should be listed.
I have some minor changes.
Ms. Daniel?
Under, 2.01.10, the Urban Forestry Tree Board. It's just grammatical stuff. It's not going to change the meaning of it. In paragraph 1, it says, city alderperson appointed by the mayor. Appointed by the. So we just need to take out one of those appointed by this. And then
Sorry, I stutter from time to time.
That's all right. And then paragraph 3 under terms, for 3 years, and it should be alderperson, not city councilor. And then there should be a period at the end of that sentence. I mean, it's all just grammatical. Paragraph 3 under terms. Instead of city councilor, it should say alderperson. Yeah. Yeah.
Mr. Anderson?
I move to amend this by making the changes, deleting appointed by the, putting alderpersons instead of city councilor in paragraph 3, subparagraph 3, and in the third to the last line of subparagraph 4, cities should be before urban, so that it reads the city's urban forestry program. And while I'm at it, I would just combine those last two sentences so that the board shall make such recommendations to the council as it deems proper and shall meet with the common council as necessary.
Okay. Is there a second for the amendment?
I'll second that, Daniel.
Any discussion for the amendment? Not seeing any. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Amendment passes. Okay, now going back to the ordinance itself, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Anderson?
Yeah, I guess I have two more amendments. Okay, one would be on 2.0116 in the middle of page 31. There's that term owner again, which is nowhere defined in the ordinances. And so I think to make that clear, it should read, Airport Commission shall have 3 members be appointed alternately by Oneida County and the City of Rhinelander, serve terms of 6 years and function under, I think there ought to be a reference in there to, where is that? The ordinance we already have on the airport, and now I lost track of it, but it's somewhere in chapter 3. Okay. What I would like that sentence to read, this is my motion then really, to substitute, the Airport Commission shall have 3 members appointed alternately by the City of Rhinelander and Oneida County who serve terms of 6 years and function under Ordinance Chapter 3.05 and Wisconsin Statute Section 114.142.
Is there a second? Or it's his amendment.
Second and find out.
Daniel, I'll go ahead and second that.
If I may try to explain, we already have an ordinance that deals extensively with the airport functions. We ought to at least have a reference to that here. I'm not sure this sentence even belongs where it is. It should be, I think, in section 3, in chapter 3.05. But if we're going to have it here, then at the very least we need to explain the term owner, and might as well have the ordinance reference as well.
Any other discussion for the amendment? Not seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Amendment number 2 passes. Mr. Anderson?
One more amendment. This latest version has plan commission under standing committees, section 2.05.15. Since we already have it listed under boards and commissions, it doesn't make sense to me, even though I have said in the past there is a nearest thing to a functioning committee that we have. It doesn't make sense to put them here as well. So I moved to delete Plan Commission from 2.05.15 on this.
Do you mean then to get rid of the entire 2.05.15, because otherwise it has nothing in it?
You're right. How about if I change the motion to say, I move that we eliminate all of the wording under 2.05.15 standing committees and put reserved in there.
Holt, second.
Any discussion? Not seeing none. All those in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Those opposed? Amendment passes. Any other discussion regarding the ordinance change? Not seeing none. Clerk, take the roll call.
Stephen Jopek, David Holt,
Aye.
Leanne Felton,
Aye.
Thomas Kelly,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
Carrie McLowski,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Okay, ordinance passes. Moving on to 9A. So this is regarding some CDBG. We got some bids back. We are recommending that we only approve the base bid of $77,653.51. Would entertain a motion.
What page?
It was an attachment.
Correct, for Town and Country.
I don't know when it was put in the boxes. Friday, Thursday?
Yeah.
It says Town and Country at the top of the...
Holt, I'll make a motion to approve contract with base bid only $77,653.51.
Anderson, second.
Any discussion? Mr. Anderson?
Basically, that's because we don't have enough money for any of the other stuff.
Correct, and we weren't able to expand the scope of the project under the grant funding. Okay. Not seeing any discussion. Clerk, take the roll call.
David Holt,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek, Carrie McLowski,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Leanne Felton,
Aye.
Thomas Kelly.
Aye.
9A passes. Going on 9B, update on squad dash and body worn cameras. Refer to Zach.
And the chief may want to come forward as well, given some recent announcements, if there's anything you'd like to share on that front. As you're aware, body-worn cameras was discussed during some of the IT consolidation efforts. Simultaneously, though, I don't think it's gotten as much of attention or discussion, possibly through the budget work sessions last fall, was the squad dash cams. That effort continues to move through exploration, though I would say until more recently, when we reached a threshold with the IT consolidation project, it hasn't gotten the full attention. But we did meet recently as a group again to refocus our attention on this priority, and we're in the process of putting together a request for proposals from vendors to hopefully bring before the body for execution. But perhaps you want to share more on the announcements supporting the effort.
Yes, approximately 2 years ago, we had a citizen give $2,000 just to help start that process. And we also were awarded over $22,000 by the state in a law enforcement grant. More recently, I received a phone call from Triggs, who will be meeting with me Thursday to present a check for $10,000. And then I'm soliciting requests from other organizations within the community to help to get closer to the need to fulfill both having body cameras and new squad cameras. They're very outdated and the technology is not reliable.
I think we set an internal, I was going to add an internal target of about 30 days from now to have those proposals scoped, received, and then be able to come back before the group to potentially get a direction from the body on execution, though we might need some time for trialing. We're going to figure out how long. In the scope of question was delivery dates. There's a lot of, question of when we might be able to take delivery of these things. So that was another item as part of the discussion.
Mr. Anderson, he beat you, sorry.
Do we have an estimate of what this is going to cost?
I think we had an initial estimate of maybe 60,000, but they vary widely. If we're going to go fully cloud or if we're going to go storage on site, the different capabilities. Are we bundling body-worn cameras and dash cam or squad cams all together? So there's a number of variables that impact that. But I would say it's all told it's going to be under 100,000, and we should have, with some grant funding, potentially some monies yet this year, and then borrowed funds. I believe we should have a funded project. That's my confidence factors there.
Mr. Barnett?
Oh, I was basically going to ask the same thing, what's the difference money-wise, from the money that's been raised to what we need, how much more do we need? So, but you answered that just fine.
I think we've got some other potential funders that we're going to approach. Retailers are in particular, like Triggs and others in the community, might be receive a direct benefit by having some of this for their purposes in our law enforcement activities there. So I think there's some options potentially for more funding.
And there's also $30,000 in a drug forfeiture account that I made aware to the sheriff that I would be requesting those funds for this project.
Just make sure it doesn't say motion picture you sold me on the back.
Okay. Moving on to 9C, this is update on the splash pad qualifications. I believe we got two firms or groups that showed interest in helping us design and move forward with a splash pad. I refer to Zach.
Yeah, I'll share a link out to you all with the two responses. They're quite extensive with a lot of color pictures, so I don't think we'll print them all off for everybody, but you'll get a link so you can click into it through your email. The outdoor recreational plan survey has also been published. Tremendous amount of response. As of last Thursday, in a matter of 4 days, I think we had about 400 community responses, which just blew the researcher away. So I think we're in a good spot there to get community preferences around how important is this priority heading into next year. So we'll report those findings. I think it's the September 12th council meeting is when we'll have those findings to share. So the next steps in this would be one, to compare it against the survey results from a priority standpoint, to figure out really, is this going to be in Pioneer Park or might there be another location? So far we've been marching forward that it'll be taking place in Pioneer Park, and then ultimately to set a budget, because that'll drive the rest of the planning process, how much we have for resources both from a design and engineering, but also the construction budget. We also have been talking with the Community Foundation, Kiwanis, Lions, Rotary, all the community organizations, I think that would have a great interest in seeing this project through. So it's our hope that we can continue to march forward on this project and hopefully have some answers in the coming months.
So I'm assuming when the survey's done, the survey would then need a direction, this board would direct which projects we want to take priority over, if that's a skate park, if that's a splash pad or both.
Mm-hmm.
From there, they would direct administration to solicit budget concepts and what have you.
That's right.
Okay. Mr. Barnett?
Well, from what you just said, I really hope that we're not going to put a splash pad over the skate parks, because we've been working so hard on that and a lot of effort has been gone into that. So skate park comes first in my book, all the way 100%. Two, would there be a public hearing about where the splash pad would go for interested parties that utilize that park as well?
I think once we get the survey back, until we know how much demand there is for a splash pad, there's no point in setting up public hearings. If we have 700 surveys and one guy's like, yay, splash pad, and no one else finds an interest,
Right.
No point in wasting time.
But if there is, there would be a...
There could be. Yeah. Okay. Moving on to 9D. So pretty much council multiple months ago approved to have this done. There was some questionable activities done, which lost some of the data. So now we're coming back to see if council wants to fund this to do a second round where we could get more data regarding this PFAS issue at the site. Refer to Zach for anything else.
Page 33 in your packets is the scope and background on the lysimeter replacement project as proposed by the UW Geoengineering Lab. The cost of the effort would be $7,500. And so bringing this forward for your information, consideration, and potential questions.
Mr. Barnett?
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the scope of work for replacement of the PFAS lysimeter project.
Daniel, second.
And for discussion, do we have an agreement that these will not be tampered with in any way from parties?
I think there's certainly a desire to have this in a secure location to the extent that all parties are fully aware of the location so that there's not any question of what these actually are in the ground. I think it's sort of inherent if we're going to spend any sum of money.
Mr. Anderson?
Is this going to gain us additional information or basically what we were supposed to have gotten the first time around?
Correct. So pretty much we're double paying for the product.
But we didn't get the results from the first round because they were tampered with, correct?
I would say your conclusion is accurate.
So would the parties that tampered with it in the first place be paying for this, or at least partially paying for this?
That would be up to what council would like administration to do. You could direct us to look into that or request, but at this point, this would be an expenditure coming out of our funds.
Can I make that now, or?
Amendment, of course.
All right, I would like to amend my original motion to have administration look into responsible parties that affected the first lysimeter project to pay for the damages done and pay for the renewal of the project going forward.
Is there a second?
Mikulowski, second.
Any discussion about the amendment? Mr. Holt?
Yeah, for clarification, are we, either we approve to pay for it or not, it's my understanding, and then if we're wanting to investigate, have administration investigate getting responsible parties to pay for it, does that mean if they say no, we simply pay for it? Or are you saying that you want administration to look into this first and then come back and report to us, and then we approve paying for it ourselves?
That one.
Okay. So your motion, just for clarification, is not to authorize the spending quite yet, but to get our administration to go try to find others to help.
So then I would not second and let the amendment die, and then probably divide the, vote no on proving, and then,
Well,
actually, I'm going to refer to Steve.
Just, first of all, understand that the proposal is time sensitive, the $7,500. I mean, if they're going to do it, they're going to do it now. They're not going to wait around till we chit-chat with the airport commission. Now, as I understood, the motion is go ahead and do it, and we'll go back. And I think there's some reason to believe that there may be compensation coming, but I certainly don't think it's going to come tomorrow or very rapidly. So the only thing I'd say, and again, I don't set the policy, you do, if you want these results and you want this information on PFAS and the movement of PFAS, you got to support this now, and then we can worry about where that $7,500 comes from later. I mean,
Then,
the word is out there that there's somebody that should be paying. We understand that.
so my original motion stands, approving this, where are we? Oh, discuss and approve scope of the work for replacement of the PFAS lysimeter project, and I'm also directing the administrator to contact the responsible parties for the damaged lysimeters previously to see if there's something we can work out for them to pay for the damages.
For
and
possible reimbursement.
Possible reimbursement, thank you.
Okay, is there a second to the amendment?
That's already been done by Karen McGloskey. It's the same
Mhm.
thing.
Good enough? Okay.
I was just clarifying my amendment, or my motion.
Okay, not seeing any other discussion. All those in, it's some money. So clerk, take the roll call. Sorry.
Are we going to vote on the amendment first?
Well, the amendment never had
There-
a second, technically.
I was just
Yeah.
clarifying my original motion.
Correct. Mr.
Just
Anderson?
one more question. Does approving the scope of work approve going ahead with?
Correct.
with it?
So pretty much the work would move forward and then we would be looking for reimbursement. Oh, okay, I take it back. So we do have amendment on the floor. An aye vote would be approving the amendment, a nay vote would be not approving said amendment, per what the clerk has informed us of.
Can I just withdraw my original motion and re-say it,
You could withdraw your amendment.
or my amendment?
Okay, Mikulowski, do you agree?
I'd withdraw my second
Okay,
to the amendment.
so now the amendment is gone. Not seeing any discussion about the motion. Clerk, take the roll call.
Leanne Felton,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek, Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Thomas Kelly,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
David Holt,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Gary McLeod.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Moving on to 10A. So this is a budget timeline proposed by our city administrator for this fiscal year.
Page 37 in your packets. I recognize there's a lot of information on this sheet. Much of this is to give information as to when we receive various inputs for the budget process. So glossing over all of those minor details, I want to draw your attention really to three parts to it. The first being the last bit of internal work where we hope to have initial budgets from departments, as well as those initial meetings the last week of this month, first week of next month. And then the three boxes are also the significant area that we've tentatively set the 21st of September, which is a Wednesday before the normal council meeting. We're actually proposing that we hold a budget session the Monday, the 26th, prior to council at 5 p.m. And then on the 10th of October that we present the full budget summary as well as all inputs to date. We shouldn't be waiting for anything outstanding at that point to present a balanced budget for your consideration in a summary format on the 10th of October, again at a regular council meeting. And then from there, you'll see that it gets its public notification to the newspaper. Council wouldn't officially have a budget hearing, though, until the 14th of November, which would be the council meeting. So really two budget meetings, the 21st and 26th of September, and then the summary and final discussion before it goes to the newspaper and public on the 10th of October.
Any thoughts or discussion?
Any concerns with some of the revisions this year? Okay.
Okay. Moving on to 10B. Zach passed out some more clarification. So these are properties that make logical sense to be part of our city. Due to the expansion of the city over the years, these kind of got forgotten and left behind. So this action would be then passed on to the townships they belong to. And then from there, I'm assuming circuit court, assuming if need to.
If we need to, yeah.
To bring them into the city. So these would be 3 lots on Timber Drive on the inside of the bypass. This would be 1 parcel owned by the hospital within, it's actually an island in the city. This would also be 2 lots over at the end of Lincoln on the inside of the bypass, as well as a couple lots remaining next to a proposed development on Shawnee, if I'm not mistaken.
Danielle, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2022-15, annexing territory to the city of Rhinelander.
Holt, second.
Any discussion? Okay, not seeing none. Clerk, take the roll call.
Gerald Anderson,
Let it be known he left the room for this.
Yep. Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Thomas Kelly,
Aye.
Carrie McLeod,
Aye.
David Holt,
Aye.
Leanne Felton,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Motion passes. Would like I would entertain a motion to receive the monthly reports from departments.
I will make a motion to accept monthly reports from departments as presented.
Daniel, second.
Any discussion? Not seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Would entertain if anyone would like to go into closed session. Yes, we would like to go into closed session.
I will make a motion. Do I have to read it, the whole, oh, good grief.
That's why I entertain it.
I will make a motion. Thank you. If necessary, convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute Section 19.851 sub C E G, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility in deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. A, discuss litigation in which the city is or may become involved in. B, discuss scale of city property at 306 Thayer Street. C, discuss the purchase of property. D, discuss negotiations with the Rhinelander Professional Police Association Local 38. E, discuss employee recruitment and retention. F, adjourn closed session and return to open session. And then B, take action if necessary on closed session items.
Is there a second?
Holt, I will second. You did it so eloquently, Madam President.
All those in favor?
Aye.
It's a roll call vote.
No, you're right. Sorry, clerk, take the roll call.
Aye.
David Holt,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek, Carrie Mikulowski,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Thomas Kelly,
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Action passes. It is 7:43. We're coming back from closed session. Anything to report?
Daniel, make a motion to negotiate the sale of 306 Thayer to the adjoining property owner for $8,580 with the condition that that lot must be combined with the adjacent lot currently owned by that property owner.
Second.
Second by Kelly. Not seeing any discussion. Clerk, take the roll call.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Carrie McLowski.
Aye.
Thomas Kelly.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Motion passes.
I'll make a motion. I don't want to, but I'll make a motion to direct staff to secure proposals and begin recruitment for a replacement city administrator with a standing item to appear on the upcoming council meeting for discussion.
Holt reluctantly second.
Any discussion? Not seeing none. Clerk, take the roll call.
Carrie McLowski.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek. Gerald Anderson.
Reluctantly, aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Thomas Kelly.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 13, future agenda items. Any requests? Not seeing none. It's 7:45. Meeting adjourned.